Hello and welcome to day 14 of #July Postcard Play, hosted by Carrie the Crafter. You can check out my playlist for other videos on this. Today I'm going to be doing this piece. I'm going to be recreating it as much as I can. This is actually a postcard size 4x6 I made for a friend of mine, and I didn't film it, so I'm going to have to recreate it. And I've done something similar before, using these masks by PM Artist Studio. The designer is Susan Dufresne. I'll link these masks below. I'm not sure, I had a couple different sizes. For example, this size here was used on my New Year's Eve stream where I did alcohol inks on the Gelplate. This is Pan Pastel, this part here, which is what I'm going to be doing, and alcohol inks I'm going to be using as well. I do have a little bit of a better technique, I think, for the Pan Pastel portion. So it comes in different sizes. So that's one size. I'm going to be using one of these smaller sizes for my postcard today. And I really like this one, so I think I'm just going to use this one. They each have different names. I'm going to grab out my 5x7 plate and we'll get started. So I've talked before about how when you use alcohol inks on the gel plate, it does make your plate yellow. So I've got a plate here, my 5x7, that I, if I'm going to use alcohol inks, I try to grab it out so that I'm not yellowing my other plate. Eventually they'll both probably be yellow, but they still work the same. And the way I started this one, I just used some Mars Black Liquitex Basics. So we're going to roll that out. We want to be careful not to make it too thin because we do want to have enough paint left under our mask so that we have her outline. And I'm going to face her this way, approximately there. And then you just use a piece of paper to pick up the paint from around the mask. The thinner the paper you use, the more paint you'll get, the more detail of a mask impression you'll get. Especially her eyes and her hair, I find I have to give it a really good rub. So that's pretty good for step one. I think we need to take off a little bit more, quite a bit more. So I'll probably put this in my giveaway that I'm doing at the end of July. If you want to check out the details of that, just go watch my stream, live stream from July 10th, and all the details are in there. And that's going to be happening on July 31st, but you need to see the details on July 10th. All right, that's our second impression. I think I want to just take a bit more off with the baby wipe. And then I'm going to leave the mask in place while I add the alcohol inks. Once those are dry, we'll lift it up to do the Pan Pastel, and then we're going to pull it with gold. I like pulling this with gold because then you get sort of a secondary sort of shimmer underneath. On the card I made my friend, we used purple for her hair and her sweater. And we used some blues around her. We'll do a similar color scheme. So I do have a lot of my alcohol ink swatched out. So I have these tinny cases here that you can get from Ranger, and it fits this many, so 5x6, do the math. So I've got two cases. The other one I have more like my neutrals and my metallics and mixative ones. This one is more just sort of colors. So we're going to use the, I think we'll use the Wild Plum for her lips. And you have to be a little careful because sometimes, whoa, it'll drip a bit too much. I'm just going to soak some of that up. It's hard to control the amount of alcohol ink that drips in there. So I think that's pretty good. I wish they had like a finer tip so you could control the drippage a bit better, but all right. And then I think for her hair, maybe we'll mix up like indigo and the purple twilight, those two together. That might be kind of cool. So indigo should be here. Yes, that's indigo. And then the purple twilight's a little bit of a lighter purple. So I'm going to just do the purple twilight first. And this is actually her ear, that's not her hair, so I'll be avoiding that area. We'll do the indigo. And what I like about the alcohol ink is you do have a little bit of a blending and a randomness to it. It kind of almost gives it like a watercolor effect. So that's a lot of ink. That might take a while to dry. I might just soak up just a smidge. If you don't want to stain your hands, then you should probably wear gloves. Okay, just a little bit. I feel like I need more purple there. I think we're okay. All right, and then I'm gonna do a bit of this on her, like where her shirt would be. Just gonna kind of do random. So it's the indigo. And this is the purple twilight. And I might just spread that with a brush a little bit. Okay. And then I'm gonna add, to clean your brush, you would use alcohol. And then let's add some nice bright blues around her. When you're working with alcohol inks, always work in a well-ventilated area. Don't use any open flames. So I think on the one that I showed you at the beginning, I feel like I used this patina color and this mermaid. So let's just use those again. Now, I remember when I did the postcard, they were really spreading a little bit more. So you can use alcohol on your plate. I can't spray it now because I don't want to spray everything there, but I could, well, maybe I could if I just cover the areas I don't want to spray. Let's try that. This is not how I did the one that I showed you, but just gonna give it just a little bit more spreading surface here. And then we'll drop a bit more ink. So I'm just trying to be careful not to spray her hair or her lips because I don't want them to move too much. And then we'll drop a little bit more. I might add another blue there. Wow, that's really not spreading today. Interesting. There, that one is. I might get my brayer involved here just to move it a little bit. So it looks maybe quite green because my Gelplate is very yellow. All right, so we got a little bit more coverage. I'm not worrying about the top too much because my my postcard's only 4x6 and this is a 5x7 plate. So my postcard's only gonna be like that big. Now I feel like I wanna add maybe a bit of this, the aquamarine, just a deeper blue, because I want it to look kind of mottled. And if there's a few little spaces between, I don't mind too much because the gold is going to show through. Okay, and I might just use my brush again just to get it a little bit closer without overpowering. Kind of get it right to the edge there. So we're going to need to let that dry. So whenever you try to recreate a print, you know, with the Gelplate, it's never going to be the same. You have to just accept that. I might like this one more or less than the one I made for my friend. It's hard to know. I like here how it's more mottled. Like here, it's a bit too solid. I could use some, I could drip some alcohol in there to try to get it to break up a bit. And if this will drip, just using my sprayer cap. Never put alcohol inks, like these colored inks, never put them in a spray bottle because they have resins in them, which can be damaging to your health. You don't want to inhale any resins. I don't want to touch the surface because I do not want to contaminate my whole. Now it's too much. I'm going to put one more drop in the middle there. So I like that. It's a bit more broken up. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry and then we'll pull it off, pull the stencil off, and then we'll add our Pan Pastels. So it's mostly dry. I'm just going to show you, I don't think I did this when I did my friend's postcard, but one of the things I'll often do when I'm using alcohol ink with stencils is I'll spray them to see if I can get any of the alcohol ink off of them and onto tissue paper. I'm just going to spray this off camera, and I'm going to plop it down. Or I could have put it down and then put the tissue on and then sprayed it. Let's see if that transfers some of the alcohol ink. This isn't a wet strength tissue, it's just regular tissue. So it's not quite doing a lot. I'm going to just turn it over, keep it where it was. I'm just going to spray a bit more. It could be that this one didn't have much alcohol ink because I didn't use it right on the face there, so. So I'm bringing in my Pan Pastels, and I'm going to use flesh tones. First though, I want to just put a little bit of white where her eye is. So that's where her eye is. And then I'm going to just use a paper towel or piece of paper to clean off my applicator. And then I'm going to start with her highlights. Whatever you put down first when you're using Pan Pastels on the Gelplate, or whatever you're doing on the Gelplate, whatever you put down first is what you're going to see. Now I know on that one I did with my friend, I used this color as the highlights, but it was almost too light. So I'm going to just blend it here a bit so that it's not quite so stark. So I have just a nice highlight, but not too stark. So I'm going to give her some little cheekbones here. On my friend's card, what I had to do is after it was done, I had to actually go back and use the Pan Pastels on top. Now, when you use the Pan Pastels on the gel plate and you pick it up with the acrylic paint, that actually seals in your Pan Pastel. But if you go over top of that afterwards, then you're going to be putting down fresh Pan Pastel, so you're going to have to seal it again. So I'm just putting some highlights where I feel we would have some highlights. And again, I'm just mixing these two colors here. I think her chin, we'll do a little bit on her chin. Do a little bit here at the front of her neck, but not too high up because there is some shadow from her face. But we'll just do a little bit here. It's very windy out there today. I don't know if you can hear that wind rustling. Okay, and then next I'm going to put on the, I think I'm going to go to the darkest color that I'm going to use, and I'm going to do that in some areas that I think would be not as bright. So, and I know some people kind of like poo-poo on coloring books, using coloring books, but I found that I learned a lot from doing coloring books and watching Dee Dee Willingham about shading, you know, especially when you're doing faces, but just shading in general. You can learn a lot from doing coloring books. I'm just going to put the end of the bottom of her chin here. And like I said, if I'm not totally happy with the blend, then I can go back after and add a bit of shading, but then I will have to seal it. I don't know if I got to that point. So if you put Pan Pastel after, then you would have to seal it. I'm just gonna put a little extra highlight just on her eyelid here. And I think we'll do a little bit in here. I'll link a couple of videos below. One of them will be the one that I did the New Year's Eve stream with the alcohol inks. Just pick up a little bit of that lighter color again, just to get her other eye that's behind there. And then I'm leaving space for the gold to shine through. I'm trying to. And I'm going to use my medium color here, and I'm going to just kind of, so even though it might look blended here, once you pull up your print, it doesn't blend the same as it would if you're going directly to page. Now her ear here got a little bit covered with the alcohol ink, so I'm just going to try to fill it in there, and we'll see how it looks after. Now, when you do your pull with the acrylic paint, it won't pull up all the Pan Pastels. So you want it to look fairly smooth, but it's not going to pull up everything. I think here it's not going to be very blended. I don't think what I could have done is I could have gone to make a mix of the darker color that I'm using and the medium color. I could have done a mix of that to get more of a blend between these two. So I suspect that I'll be doing that blending over top a little bit more and then adding a fixative over top. So we'll see. So I think it's pretty covered. You can actually look underneath, like if I had this on an acrylic plate, it'd be easy to turn it over and see. So the blending looks a little rough, but I think it's, once it's down, it's kind of too late to to fix it. Like, it might look good here, but I think it's gonna look a little rough when we pull it. But I do want to make sure I have enough so that at least the base is pretty full of the Pan Pastel, if you know what I mean. Okay, so now Pan Pastel is a dry medium, and we know the alcohol ink's already dry, so this is ready to pull. Now, I did forget to mention, if you don't have Pan Pastels, I mean, you can buy individual circles of it. I believe Golden owns it now, or you can buy sets of 5. I bought a portrait set and then another set, so I did have some duplicates. However, you can use eye makeup. I'll link my video below where I did compare Pan Pastels versus makeup from the drugstore, and you can get pretty good results just with regular makeup, and I've used that on stream before as well. And I'm going to pull it using the smooth side down. So we'll use this to help us get good pressure. I'm using the PBO Iridescent Precious Gold. I'm going to cover the whole plate, even though the postcard won't go that far. And you want to not have it too thick. So that's pretty good. You can sort of see her below there. So I'm going to put my postcard down. And I'm going to use this so that I can press that postcard down fully. And then I'm going to rub this for a couple minutes and then let it dry fully, and then we'll pull it and we'll do any finishing touches on top that it needs. So it's been a few minutes. So I'm going to just pull this up and we'll test if it's ready. So that kind of turned out a little interesting in a good way. And I'm going to take a peek to see if it's going to pull off. So yeah, it's pulling off pretty well. So here we have our print. It's not perfectly blended, but really it's not too bad. I feel like there's maybe a bit too much white here. But see how the gold shines through and just gives it that little extra pop? Fortunately, I did get too much alcohol ink. It kind of went into her ear, but we're just gonna ignore that, shall we? Wondering if we just add a little bit of a gray here, just because it's just maybe too bright. Like, her pupil's pretty good, but maybe I just need to give her a little bit more of an iris. Let's try this copper to see. There's just something about it. I think I need to add some black. See here how it's just a little bit darker. There's more interest in there. Like, this just is a bit too open. I think I'm just gonna go right over that gel pen. And I'm gonna just make that just a little bit bolder. I feel like could be I didn't have enough black paint underneath. There, I think that's a little bit better. So it's not perfect. I think I like my original one better that I did for my friend. I don't know if you can see both of those side by side. But that one I did add a lot of Pan Pastel on top. Or should we do that? Yeah, let's go for it. Let's go for it, and then I'll spray fix it a bit. I think it just needs a bit more shading to really bring it to life here. I don't want to go over the gold. I like the gold on those parts there. Uh-oh, see, this is what happens. Went down a rabbit hole. I think that's pretty good. I don't want to mess here too much because I feel like I muddied it there a little bit, and I kind of like how that looks there. I just felt like this was a bit too cool, so I had a little bit of this red iron oxide shade in these areas that are a bit darker, and then I used the sienna to just blend it in a little bit more. So I think I'm happy with that. Okay, one more thing before I spray seal it. I think I'm going to outline the edge just with a little bit of gold paint, just to give it a finished border. All right, so, okay, I'm going to go spray that. I'm not going to touch it anymore. Sometimes you just got to say, good enough. So here's our final card varnished, and as I was bringing it back upstairs to film this, I realized that I forgot to put the number 14. Now ideally you varnish is your last step, but it's still pretty fresh. I'm just going to use this fine point permanent marker, and I'm just going to put a 14 in somewhere. Let's just put it here. We'll just kind of do that. All right, there's our number 14. So I do not like this one as much as the original one I did, but that's quite common with mono printing with the gel plate, is that you cannot really fully control it. So it's very hard to replicate things. I'm tempted to put the 14 in gold. Using my Krylon gold. All right, so just kind of edged it just a little bit. So it's very subtle. This was the spray varnish that I used. It's called Khmer Varnish by Krylon. It does say allows easy rework, so maybe that will, the 14 will stay on there pretty well. Thanks for watching. See you for card 15. Bye.
I have shown this before, but to clean off the Pan Pastel, you can do some ghost prints. I don't feel like this one has enough around it to do a ghost print, but you can get extra pickups from it. But basically you just use the Pan Pastel, you just use the baby oil, and you just give it a rub with a wet cloth or a baby wipe, and then that gets off the remainder of the Pan Pastel.